What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla SPY in the overall market. I'm going to talk about a big downgrade that came to Tesla as we're seeing some new fears emerging, not to mention some news involving the overall markets as we have more data coming out in the daytime. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY on invested cash. This offer ends in just about 24 hours from now, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the market. So looking at Tesla, we have a nice double top leg structure starting to develop. We were attempting to push up higher on Friday, but we are starting to dip a bit because we got a little downgrade. So with this, a little bit of negative news that came out, it is slowing Tesla down a bit with the overall market. And if we continue, if we fail to hold this 260 area for some time, we could see Tesla actually dip closer to our 20 EMA down to about 254. So we have to see if Tesla could reclaim 260 or not. Otherwise, we might dip a little bit because of this negative news. So let's talk about the news first, and then I'll talk about the charts a little bit later. Just know that there is news coming out that Tesla got a rating downgrade, and some headlines are saying that it's time to cash out before the robotaxi event. That does not necessarily mean that they're going to be correct about this. It's still possible Tesla runs even higher to 270s and even 300s. But for now, we're seeing these negative headlines. On top of this, there's been some talk about how RBC Capital Markets acknowledged the fact that there could be a near-term setup for Tesla stock that could be very, very challenging. And they're saying that once again, many quarters ahead, they're very, very bullish, but they're seeing a very, very critical level on Tesla, and they're saying that it has to pull that. Basically, that's going to be very, very necessary for it to change the narrative of the stock. So they're basically saying that Tesla's FSD is very, very bullish. With them reducing prices, they think that it's a very, very bullish catalyst for the long term, but for the short term, with what's coming out so far, I think that Tesla's at a critical resistance, and they also believe that it is a time to once again be a little bit more critical with it. On top of this, there's been a lot of talk about how before Tesla could even go higher, they may have to see a little bit of a dip. So that's what a lot of narratives are kind of like pushing towards right now. So we're seeing some downgrades, at least ahead of deliveries. That doesn't necessarily mean they're correct. That depends on how Tesla does, but that's what a lot of these headlines are saying. So for today, we have Bowman giving a speech right now. Then at 9:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the Chicago PMI report coming out. Look for volatility then, followed by 10:30 a.m. as we have the Dallas Fed Manufacturing Index. There may be some volatility at these times. At 11:30, we have some bill auctions, which is going to be a little bit more minor. And then at 1:55 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have Jerome Powell giving a speech. Whatever he says could pump or dump the market, so be ready. I just want to say that right now, there's about a 41.6% chance we get a 50 basis point cut, and the market's pricing in a higher probability of us getting 25 basis points now because of a little shift right here. There's some headlines coming out there saying that the oil markets are not pricing in an all-out war, especially after the tensions that are rising in the Middle East. However, other headlines are saying the exact opposite, that oil is going to be fine. We'll have to wait and see how this affects inflation, if it does affect it, during the next reports in about 10 days. Besides that, there's not really much else that's going on in terms of the news for the markets. So now the question is what's happening right over here. So as far as Tesla goes, if we could hold 260, we're looking for 262.5, followed by about the 265 area as resistance. If we don't hold 260, we're at risk of dipping all the way back down towards 258, which, if that fails, we'll be dipping all the way down towards 255. That's very close to where our 20 EMA happens to be. If 255 fails us on Tesla, look for a bigger dip to about 250. So be very open-minded for these levels. Unfortunately, it looks like Tesla has kind of like a double top leg structure starting to develop. And with the market, if you look at SPY, for example, we are barely holding the 570 area, with this kind of dipping a little bit. We have a bearish wedge that's forming, and we have like a little bit of weakness developing throughout the market that could slow Tesla down a little bit. So instead of going a little bit higher, we are looking like we had some negative news and Tesla's rejecting at this resistance. So I think the odds favor is dipping just a little bit to the mid 250s, but then Tesla should get bought back up again and continue to hold up as time goes on. I think Tesla may dip a little bit, then start to consolidate for some time, still stay within this range between 262 and 255. Tesla may trade sideways between that. Might be a little bit of a dip that's coming before it tries to bounce again. But overall, approaching deliveries, we could see Tesla continuing to pump all the way back up to these highs. Not to mention because of the fact that we have Jerome Powell giving a speech later on. So for now, we may start off on a weak end, but then we could finish very strong depending on Jerome Powell. So that's what my view of Tesla now is. It shifted a little bit because of these new headlines, but everything's going to be fine for Tesla nonetheless. Now, as far as SPY goes, I just want to mention that we're showing some weakness right now. So we have the 570 areas remain supports. If that fails us, we'll be looking for 568 as our target for today. If not, 566. We have resistance to watch for 570.5. If we break that, we're looking for 570, just under 572, basically. But because we have this bearish divergence and because we're losing our 20 EMA, the odds favor this dipping a little bit lower, closer to 568. So we'll see if 570 holds us. If not, there's going to be a risk of us dipping lower. Please be mindful of the setup is showing some weakness. Same thing with ES. We have a bearish divergence rejection and we're failing to hold above our 20 EMA. We have to reclaim 57.91. If we don't, we risk of dipping all the way down to 57.61. There's a greater probability of that potentially happening, and we could be dipping to the 50 EMA. For Nvda, we have a head and shoulders like structure and this little rejection forming a dome here. We have this imbalance to fill. I think 116 is likely coming. If we don't hold above 118 to try to break through that, we could be dipping to about the 116 area before we start to consolidate. So watch for that very, very carefully. For Bitcoin's also dipping right here. We have kind of like a double top like structure. We have resistance at 64,382. Our main support's all the way down here around this 62,669 area. So I think that there is a risk of us potentially pushing higher and starting to dip a little bit lower, and we could be dipping back down towards the 63,500 area. So there's a risk of some downside. For NQ, we're rejecting right over here. We're failing to hold our 20 EMA. We have 20,227 as our resistance. If we don't reclaim that, we're at risk of dipping to about 20,073. So I think we could slow down towards 20,000 flats. We'll see if we bounce or not. But there might be a little bit of a dip coming, so watch for that very carefully. For the QQQ, we have 485 as our resistance. We have support at 481. I think we could be, if we don't hold 485, we're likely going to be dipping back down to about 481, very close to our 50 EMA. So there might be a small dip coming to the QQQ, but it depends if we could hold, if we don't hold above 485.79 or not. If we hold above that, we could attempt to rebound for 488. If not, we could be dipping back down towards the 480 area. For Aapl is also trying to rebound right over here. We're basically looking for 231 as our resistance, followed by 232. We got some bullish news that came out. Once again, there was some interesting news that came out, at least with these changes, but despite that, it's still holding up very, very well. So I think that there's a nice inverse cup in inverse head and shoulders like structure. I think we could try to attempt to get to 231. We'll see if Aapl gets a rejection very close to 231 to 232. Look for a small little push, and we'll see if we get a rejection back down to about 228. I'll be watching this carefully, but for now, Aapl looks like it wants to push a little bit higher. For the IWM Russell 2000, we look a little bit weak right here. We're looking at basically this 218 area as our main support. If we don't hold 218.8, we're looking for a dip back down to the least, the 218 flat area. We have 219.86 as resistance. With this rejection here, I think we could slowly come down to fill this gap to 218. So watch for that very carefully. For Coinbase, we pushed up only to gap down as coin is dipping. If we manage to reclaim 185, we're looking for a gap fill back up to 190. If we end up losing 182, we're looking for a dump to 178. We're kind of rejecting here, so there could be a dip coming to coin. Could be forming a cup and handle like structure, so this could be a small dip. We'll look for to see if we hold around 182. If we don't, I think we could be dipping to 178, so be careful with coin. For Amazon, we're dipping right now. We look more bearish. We're losing 188. We've got to reclaim that to turn bullish. Otherwise, this is at risk of coming all the way down towards 184, if not 180. So look for some downside potential. For Meta, we have a head and shoulders like structure. If we lose 564, we're looking for a big dump all the way down towards 555. That's going to be very close to our 50 EMA. And if we hold above this, we could try to rebound for 570. My gut tells me that this could be dipping back down to 562 and eventually the 560 area. So we'll see how things end up going. For Microsoft, we're dipping right over here. We're continuing to make lower highs and lower lows. If we don't hold 426, we're at risk of dipping all the way down to 424. And we have resistance at 429. My gut tells me, though, we're going to be dipping to 424.5. There's a very, very good chance this might be dipping right over here. For Google's also forming a bearish divergence. We're trying to hold 165 as our support. If it does not hold us, we could be dipping all the way down to about 162.5. I think Google may be dipping back down to 164 then 162.5, so be very mindful of that. Could be some downside that's coming at least to Google. With that being said, I just want to say I really appreciate you guys so much for listening. Please have an absolutely incredible day. And just know that some stocks are showing some weakness. Tesla could dip just a little bit, just slightly towards our 20 EMA. So we could be looking for 258. If it doesn't hold, we're looking for 254, followed by the 252 area. I think Tesla's going to be fine though, even if it does dip just slightly because of this negative news that came out as it's getting some downgrades and a lot of fears kind of like emerging, at least for the markets. The market's dragging it down, excuse me, alongside this news. So it's completely normal if we do see a little bit of a dip, but it could try to bounce later on. This is not necessarily like a case where Tesla's just going to dump. I think it's just a temporary dip. All right. So thank you for listening. Have a great day. I'll see you guys in a couple of hours for another update. Until then, thank you and peace out.